Is this a final wake-up call for these sanctuary policies? Here with the debate, former Trump Hispanic Advisory Council member Steve Cortes joins us from the sanctuary city of Chicago, and syndicated columnist Ruben Navarrete joins us from the sanctuary city of San Diego. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
Ruben, let's start with you. It's clear he pulled the trigger. And you thought he would have, after having been charged, would be convicted of at least one murder charge, didn't you?
No, I did not. I thought he'd be convicted of involuntary manslaughter. The prosecutors got greedy by going after first-degree, second-degree murder. You heard the father speak on Fox and Friends here. You heard that it was a ricochet off the pier. He heard a shot come out. All this time I've thought, in watching this, Steve, watching this story, that the suspect, the killer, confronted the Steinles. He didn't. He was some distance away. This was a complete accident.
Ruben,
and so I would have liked to see involuntary manslaughter.
Ruben, so at the very least, Ruben, in the beginning, his first story was, yeah, I had the gun and I was going to shoot at SEALs. So, and then for the defense attorney, then Steve Cortes, to come up with this, you know, he found it and he picked it up and it went off and it shot 3 times. What's up with this jury out in San Francisco?
Well, apparently they believe fairy tales. But the sad thing is, you know, I'm not trying to be funny about it because there's nothing funny about this story. A beautiful young American is dead. And why? Because of the misbegotten so-called sanctuary city policies of San Francisco and a lot of jurisdictions, including where I am right now, as you mentioned, Chicago. Liberal politicians in this country would rather put illegal immigrants and rather put their narrow political agenda over the safety of the citizens that they are supposed to serve. And by the way, too, Steve, I also hate that I don't know why, to some degree, we surrendered the language over to the left. Sanctuary cities. This was no sanctuary for Kate Steinle, for her poor father who had her die in his arms. When they talk about dreamers, you know, some of these young Americans who were killed, they had dreams, too. It's not just illegal immigrant young people who are dreamers. Americans have dreams, too. So I want us to reclaim the language. I call them outlaw cities, and I think it's important that the federal government rein this in. I think it's going to be a massive issue for 2018 elections.
Ruben, this guy, at the time of the killing, was a 7-time felon, and he was deported 5 times. He should not have been in the United States of America. You would agree, if somebody's deported and they're a felon, they should not be in this country, don't you?
That's absolutely right. And if anything, this story tells us that when you deport somebody, they don't stay deported, they come back. So you can't deport your way out of our immigration problem. Because he did come back. All these were non-violent. All these were non-violent offenses. They were drug and alcohol crimes. He had no record. He wasn't an MS-13 gangbanger who had a history of killing people. You got to understand, this was never a good case.
He was a felon. He was deported. Keep him out.
It's a felony when you come back into the country after you've been removed once before.
Ruben, I do actually agree with you. I do agree with you.
This was never a good case. This was never a good case.
Steve,
the reason that the deportations have not been working, though, is because we don't have control of our border. We're getting control, thank goodness, under President Trump, but we need that wall. And
I have to disagree.
Once he is done with his sentence for his gun charge, once he is done, this creep needs to be deported immediately, and we need to build that wall so that he can never come back to the United States.
Ruben, so this isn't about the wall. It's about employers hiring illegal immigrants. When they interviewed this suspect at the very beginning, they said, why'd you come to San Francisco? His first answer, I saw the interview live. I came to work in the restaurant industry. I came for a job. Not because it was a sanctuary. There's no such thing as a sanctuary city. In Steve's city of Chicago, my city of San Diego, today, right now, immigration agents are arresting people in our cities. It's not true.
But the
it's
local
police
are not.
Hold on a second. Ruben,
it
is a sanctuary city because he was arrested and he was deported out of San Francisco, but he kept coming back because it was San Francisco and they were turning a blind eye. Steve Cortes.
Yeah, he's saying he came back for the job. So the fact is that the sheriff has said repeatedly that ICE never asked for or issued a warrant in this case. If ICE wanted so badly, they could have issued a warrant for him. When it all went bad, everybody pointed the fingers. Cops were pointing the fingers at each other. This was never the perfect test case.
That was always the problem with employers who hire undocumented aliens. All right, Steve Cortes will give you the final word.
Well, look, also, sadly, this is hardly an isolated case. Just in California alone, Sandra Duran in Los Angeles, Jameel Shaw Jr., a young football star, both killed by multiple times deported and convicted illegal immigrants allowed to stay in that sanctuary jurisdiction. There are sanctuary, again, I hate the term outlaw cities. There are outlaw cities in this country that are preventing the cops on the ground from cooperating with ICE to get known dangerous people out of here. That lunacy has to stop. President Trump, I implore you to take even more action in this regard.
Well, it is a shocking verdict, and I know both of you were expecting him to be convicted of, in your case, Ruben, manslaughter. That didn't happen, and Steve, I know you wanted a murder charge and a conviction. Yes. All right, guys, thank you very much for the conversation this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.